Currently packing, and my cat is very upset about this. She already jumped in my suitcase and started crying, so it's okay. So yeah, she's not very happy about this. Zoe, it's okay. I made it to the airport and my plane's about to board, so yes, I'm wearing a suit because that was required by the airline. This is my hotel. Pretty nice. I don't know where I'm gonna do my makeup in this mirror over here standing up. My one in Dallas was a lot bigger and it was the same hotel chain, but so yeah, I'm gonna see. So now that I've checked into my hotel and everything, I took off my makeup. I was feeling so greasy and oily after that flight. I'm gonna go get some Vietnamese place. There's a place that's like 2 miles away and it has like amazing reviews. So I'm gonna go check that out and then come right back here and sleep because I have to be, you know, up at 2 a.m. to start getting ready, so. So bomb. I just had dinner and now I'm heading back to the hotel. I have to go to bed like immediately because I have to be up at 2 a.m. to start getting ready. So if I sleep at 8 o'clock, that gives me like 5 hours of sleep, which isn't enough time at all. So, and I still have to go over interview questions with my mom. So wonderful. All right, it is 8:30 and I'm gonna try to pass out right now. I didn't sleep on the plane earlier, so hopefully I can fall asleep. My alarm is set for 3 o'clock a.m. and I'll be heading out of here at like 6:45. So that's only gonna give me like around 3 hours to get ready. I know that sounds like a lot of time, but it's really not when you're preparing for something this big. Oh my gosh, I'm so tired. Time to get ready. It is 4 a.m. and I'm just about halfway through my makeup. I did the sock bun, took me forever. Lashes and eyebrows are done, took forever. I'm really happy with how it came out. I think it's a more like natural look. And yeah, I am going down for breakfast. I look so washed out. I swear my makeup looks so good. Just wait for that sunlight. What? And I still gotta do my lips. Oh my god. I do not use styrofoam. I don't use styrofoam, so this is really hurting me right now. Just look at some fake eggs. Fake eggs. Yum. Let's see what else they got. Okay, so it is 2019 and these people are using styrofoam. What the, like, La Quinta, La Quinta, I'm hurt. Styrofoam? Styrofoam. Who uses styrofoam? Oh my god. I'm literally gonna go ask them about this when I go down there. And I didn't have a plate. Like normally I have stuff with me because I don't use things like this. And come on. I'm so hurt right now. So hurt. So hurt. This is so gross. Dog won't shut up. I can't. I'm about to just go hungry, I swear. So I just got out of my interview. Everything went good. I only had one face-to-face and some people had two, so that makes me really nervous. Like, I'm not sure what that means, but they basically said they would only do 2 face-to-face interviews if they like needed more information from another recruiter. So hopefully the face-to-face interview I had, she got enough info and it was good. They didn't give anybody offers on the spot, so I'll have to wait up to a week to find out. Airport in like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I'm afraid my flight's gonna be delayed now because it is just storming like crazy. I wanted to talk a little bit about what I experienced at the face-to-face interview in terms of like the structure of it. So as soon as we arrived early, we were brought to a conference room. We met all the recruiters, smile, 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 and then they showed us a presentation of the pay and what it would be like to be a flight attendant, pretty typical at most big interviews. So they just talked about all the different bases, how exciting it can be to be a flight attendant, all of that stuff. And there were 2 senior flight attendants leading the presentation. They were both had been with this company for about 20 years. So after they were done with the presentation, all of us were in rows sitting down in these chairs, and they called us to the front of the room by row, and we would all just line up in the front nervously, and then they would ask us a question going down the line. Now, there wasn't any like bowl that they were picking the questions from or any document they were looking off of. It was just one senior person, one senior flight attendant who was essentially just off the top of his head asking questions to us, and he would say things like, so what do you like to do for fun? And the person would be like, I like yoga. And then he would be like, cool, are you certified in yoga? And they would be like, no. And then you move on to the next one. There wasn't really any set questions that he would ask. It was just like what he wanted to ask, basically, which was a little bit confusing because some people would get difficult questions and then other people would get like very easy casual questions. So it kind of was a little bit unfair, but most people would just give like very, very blank, brief responses, which I could tell he would keep asking more questions if you didn't really give a short response, if you just gave like a one-word answer. About 5 people said that they liked hiking, and he would just be like, so when's the last hike you've been on, stuff like that. So he basically was asking people all these different questions about like what they like to do for fun, if they could meet a famous people, who would it be? If they could meet a famous person, who would it be? He would ask like, if you could be stuck on an airplane with somebody, who would it be? And this girl literally said, probably the CEO of blank airline, that way I can ask him how to pass my interview. And everybody was like, dude, no. Like, it was so awkward. I don't know, I think like if she said it in a different way, it could have like pulled through, but it literally sounded like so fake and weird. And it was funny because one of the questions that I got, I'm not really supposed to discuss exactly what it was, like word for word, but I basically got the question of like, if you were to be an animal, which one would you be? And this is so funny because me and my mom were talking about this as a joke. Like, she was like, so what would you say if they asked you if you wanted to be an animal, and what would it be? And I was like, they're not gonna ask that. And this was before my first face-to-face interview that we were joking about this. So when he asked me that question, in my head I was like, oh my gosh. And I never picked an animal. Like, me and my mom were talking about this, and I was just kind of like, I don't know, I'll say like a cheetah or something. Like, I was just joking, but I really should have thought this one through, because up there I was like, ooh, and I was just thinking in my head like, oh my god, me and my mom just talked about this is so weird. So I was nervous on the spot, but I wanted to keep smiling and just like give a good presentation. So I basically said I would love to be a cat, specifically my cat, so I can understand like her needs better. And he was like, oh, what kind of cat do you have? And I was like, a tabby cat. And he was like, oh, how old is she? And I was like, she's 18. And he was like, oh, wow, you guys must be really close. And I was like, yes, we are, you know, inseparable. And looking back on it now, I should have picked a different animal, because I don't know if this really matters, or if they would have like thought about it like this, but I was thinking in my head like, what if they were thinking like she's not going to become a flight attendant because she's not going to have an arrangement for her cat, or she's not going to be able to go to training and have the cat in another area. And I don't really think that would like make or break my interview. It was just something I thought of later, like, ooh, maybe I should have picked like some other animal just so they wouldn't get the vibe that I'm like too attached to my pet and I can't like move on with my flight attendant career. But I didn't think it was that big of a deal. So anyway, after everybody in the entire room went up row by row and had their little question, we all sat down. We just waited for the interviewers to come in the room and pick us 2 or 3 at a time to go have our one-on-one interview. Now, I was sitting there for about an hour and a half. I was one of the very last people to get picked, which made me extremely nervous because I didn't know what order they were going in. It was me and 2 other people left in the room, in this conference room, and we were just chit-chatting, like socializing. And finally, one of the senior flight attendants came in and grabbed me, and she had me sit in another conference room, and then I was the last person in that room to get a face-to-face interview. So after waiting in a separate room for a long time, and then I went to another smaller conference room, I was still waiting even longer to get my one-on-one interview. So essentially for that one-on-one interview, I was called into the room and I addressed her by name because I specifically remembered her name. So I just said like, hi, blank, you know, thank you so much for interviewing me. We sat down and at first she started going over a list of things like, are you willing to relocate bases? Are you willing to pass a drug screen? Are you willing to, like, she was just listing a bunch of standard things that you need to have in order to be a flight attendant. And she was like, are you, yes or, it's like a yes or no, are you able to commit to these or like adhere to these rules? And I was like 100% absolutely. So then we got into the interview, and it was basically her asking very typical standard flight attendant interview questions. Name a time that you know, gave excellent customer service. Name a time when a customer was extremely hostile towards you, and how did you handle, like, those types of questions. And then she actually handed me a script and had me read off the script. It was something like, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for boarding, blah, blah, blah. And it was basically the script that flight attendants read in the plane. And I basically threw on my debate voice, and I was like, yes, I'm going to nail this. Like, I'm not afraid to speak in front of people. And I just wasn't nervous for it, and I read it completely smoothly, and I didn't even have like one interruption or one hiccup. So I felt really good about reading that script, and I was like, okay, I sound like a flight attendant. But then I started noticing, like, from the beginning of the interview to the end, she was really, really rushing me. Like, I'm not even kidding you. She would ask me one question. I would be on the first sentence of answering that question, and she'd be like, okay, yep, great, okay, yep, great. And I'd be like, she would basically just talk over me and, like, try to rush the question even more. Like, okay, that sounds great. So I was like, whoa, like, you know, okay, I'm not really sure why she's, like, rushing me. Obviously, they have a lot of people to go through, but I'm one of the last ones, and I wasn't, like, rambling. It was like at the very beginning of me answering the question, within like maybe 5 seconds, and she would just start rushing me already. So I felt like kind of discouraged by that. I was like, oh shoot, like, why is she rushing me, you know? And then at the end of the interview, she was like, so do you have any questions for us? And I know that at this time you're supposed to ask a really good question because it shows that you're interested. You don't want to be like, nope. Like, you don't just want to be like, oh no, I have no questions, bye. You know, you definitely want to ask a question, make it seem like you're really engaged, but don't ask a question like, so can I be a commuter in my first 6 months? Like, you know, you don't want to ask something like that. So I asked a really good question, and this is like my favorite question to ask at the interview because 1, it's a question I actually want to know the answer to, and B, I feel like it's a really engaging question. And that question was, does your airline company, does your company offer any language benefits in terms of like covering tuition reimbursement, or do they have any types of programs to help you become bilingual or learn multiple languages? You know, of course, that's a really important skill for a flight attendant to have. And she basically said, yes, we do offer tuition reimbursement to learn a new language, but you do have to pass our test. And their test, she said, was really extensive and very, very difficult. So some people go and do these language classes at like a university, and then they go to that company to take the language test and they fail it, and then they aren't getting their tuition reimbursed. So she basically said, like, if you're going to do that, just know the test is really hard, and you basically have to be like 100% fluent in order to get the tuition stipend and stuff like that. So then I was going to ask another question about like, I noticed that they had international bases, and I was wondering if that was actually a possibility for like a new flight attendant, or if that was more for like senior people. And she basically said, yeah, the chances of you getting base international to start off with are like non-existent. Those are only for very, very senior people, like 20 years and over in the company. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense, just wondering. And then she was kind of like, okay, so that's everything. Like, she was still rushing, and I was kind of like, okay, you know, sounds great. Thank you so much for everything. I really appreciate it. You know, she shook my hand again. And when I walked out, I was placed in a third conference room. And that made me feel really happy because I knew some people got 2 face-to-face interviews at that interview. And I was thinking, like, maybe I'm being placed in this room so that way the next person come give me the second interview. So I sat in the room with a few other candidates, and they all said, like, yeah, we already had our second one, or we're waiting for our second one. And then after about 10 minutes, a girl came and got me, another flight attendant who was in the recruiting team. She walked me out and she was like, okay, that looks like it's it for us. You know, just to let you know, if you were to go to training, it wouldn't be until the fall. And I was like, that's perfect anyway. And then she was basically like, yeah, I'm going to walk you out. She walked me out, said bye. I shook her hand, thank you so much. And I waited outside. And I was just like, wow, I'm really discouraged. I didn't get a second interview. What's going on? And another girl came down there, and after she had her second interview, she came outside where I was, and I basically asked her, like, whoa, what happened? Was there a second interview? Like, I'm really nervous now. And she was like, oh, my second interview was basically them just, like, asking me about my tattoos. I had to show my tattoo on my wrist, and they just, like, clarified if I was going to ever get it removed. Like, that was it. They just asked her about her tattoo. So I was thinking in my head, like, maybe they didn't need a second interview for me because I don't have any tattoos. I had all my paperwork. You know, I don't know if there wasn't anything else for them to clarify. So that was essentially it after the interview. As you know, I went to downtown Houston. I just hung out at the pool and stuff, and then I took my flight home. And many of us are a part of these Facebook groups that'll be like prospective, blank company name, flight attendants, and it's really good for you to connect with other candidates. People will ask questions about interviews and stuff like that. And I noticed on there I connected with a few people, and one girl that I was with, she actually got her CJO within like 2 hours of leaving the interview. Like, she was at the airport waiting for her flight home, and she got her CJO. So after I started seeing that like a few people were getting their CJOs within like 2 hours of the interview, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I didn't get it. This is horrible. So I had to wait about a week. It was over a holiday weekend, so that caused more time to be added to the window of like waiting time. And then I got my thanks but no thanks email from the company saying that they decided to pursue other candidates. It was really, really sad when I got the news that I wasn't selected, but you know, that's just not me to like give up. So I'm going to continue searching, and you never know, there might be another interview coming very, very soon. There just might be. There might be. So if you are interested in following my journey and you want to see me become a flight attendant one day, I suggest you subscribe to my channel, and also follow me on Instagram. My username will be in the description box below. So yeah, that was about it. That was my second face-to-face interview experience. It was pretty typical, pretty much the same as the first one, only a little bit more of a letdown this time. But like I said, there's definitely more to come in the future, and I'm not giving up on my dream of becoming a flight attendant, and you shouldn't either if you are in the same arena as me looking for a job as a flight attendant. And like I said, subscribe and follow me on my social media, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye, y'allsies. Thank you so much for watching.